Hello, everyone. Welcome to Patriots III Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness. And here's your host, Tim Firecracker, and our special guest, John Valle. How y'all
Hey,
doing
John.
tonight?
Good. How
How's
are
it going,
you?
everybody?
Doing all right. Just a
Great.
quick reminder for everybody to just go ahead and help support this channel. Go ahead and give us a like, share it out if you can, follow and or subscribe. We're on Tim Holliday TV on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and I'll be putting this out onto iHeart, Spotify, and what's the other one? Apple.
All the
So,
above.
So there's a wonderful saying that Denzel Washington said a few years back, or a number of years ago, about the news. If you watch it, you're misinformed. If you don't watch it, you're uninformed. Well, our guest here, John, he is a really, really informed gentleman. We're going to be covering a lot of things in Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba, Greenland, Iran, Davos, and the United States involvement. We're going to be talking about Verizon and Twitter or X being hacked, and more daycare centers. Whoa, we got a lot going on tonight. So, John, tell us what's new. There's a lot that's even happened today.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll start off with Venezuela, because what happened in Venezuela is happening right now in the Middle East, if you're paying attention. So, as we know, we've been blowing up drug boats for a while now. And there's no better way to get the public behind you than to blow up drug boats and say, hey, stop poisoning our, America, stop killing our sons, our daughters, our fathers, So that's kind of the public face that the administration put on, and it worked because, polling showed through the roof America was behind it. But, if you saw what they were doing, if you saw kind of in the beginning when the State Department recognized Maduro as not the rightful elected leader of Venezuela, if you saw when they publicly declared it a narco state, and then the next thing they did is they made Maduro, they said he was the head of the cartel. It was called Cartel de los Soles, which is Cartel of the Suns. So you saw that legally what they were doing is making these justifications to go in and do something, right? I mean, how bad would it look us bombing a sovereign nation? So they had to do all these legal maneuvers to justify what they were going to do,
Right.
And this is just being on top of a communist state, and it basically started in 1998 with Hugo Chavez when he got elected, and when that happened in 1998, it was basically, it reminded me for those of you that, I like to say I'm 21, but for those of you that remember or are student of history, you remember what happened with Cuba and the Soviet Union back in the 60s when the Soviet Union and Khrushchev and them came in and basically kind of duped, I like to say duped Fidel and Che and Raul came in there and basically was their sugar daddy, So that's what happened. China came into Venezuela in 1998. They do what they do with every nation. They go and give them all these loans. So they gave them, I have here on my notes, 10 billion in loans. Then then Venezuela. Venezuela was the largest buyer of military equipment in Latin America. And what people don't realize is they have a huge comms infrastructure in Venezuela. They also have a huge satellite infrastructure. And so when you look at people like the United States and NASA or China and Venezuela or Russia and Kazakhstan and all these countries, everybody likes to launch their satellites or their space program around the equator line. Something to do with that, So they have a huge infrastructure there. And then China was the largest purchaser of Venezuela oil. So you looked at what was going on. You looked at China's buying all these ports up and down South America. They had Caracas. I got it here. They had Caracas, Cumana, Coral, and Maracaibo. They own those ports or are majority shareholders, like they are here in America.
Right.
Here in Seattle, they're a majority shareholder. In Florida, Miami-Dade port, they outright own that port. And we've talked about it before. They bought it through a company called China Merchant Holdings in 2006. And then you have the drug running, right? So you have a huge group down there in Venezuela. It's kind of like the triads here, but it's called the Bang Group. Anybody can Google that name and look up the Bain Group. And Venezuela is a huge transit hub for not only fentanyl precursors, but just drugs. So even though the public face was drugs, the real reason, or the other reason, among others, was to counter China, you know? And so what we did was I had training before we went into Venezuela, I had training with one of the guys who trains with us. He's former First Special Forces. And I asked him, I said, hey, so what do you think about Venezuela? He said, oh, we're going in. So how do you know? He goes, I got buddies down there right now. And so sure enough, when it happened, I texted him and I said, hey, so what do you think next? He said, keep your eyes on Iran. And I said, well, how do you think China's going to react? He goes, 4% of the oil is going to be gone. And sure enough, when I looked into it, China gets the majority of the oil two places, Iran and Venezuela. So we'll get to Iran in a minute. But so we go over to Mexico now. And now everybody's guessing we're going to go to Mexico, right? You have everybody, you just had Sean Ryan and all these guys said, hey, what the heck, man? We're going into Venezuela. How about Mexico? You know, all this stuff. Well, we are. If you look at what's going on and how the fleet's pre-positioned itself above Cuba now and kind of going up towards Mexico, you know, they have the biggest border with us. We have, according to, you know, like Michael Yan and all these guys are down in the Darien Gap and watching this, we have Chinese in Mexico. We have reportedly PLA reserves in Mexico. We know they're working with the cartels from past podcasts I've done with you guys, stuff that you can find on Twitter, anywhere out there. It's widely open source to working with the cartels, most notably the Sinaloa cartel. We know the Russians are also working in there. And the Russians, the Sinaloa cartel have a little branch called Los Rusos. And there's a Mexican reporter that's been reporting widely on this. Laura Logan's reported on this. A lot of people have reported on this. And so we had that article, I think it was 2024, where a colonel came out from the Air Force and said there are more GRU and spent knots in Mexico right now than at any other time, helping these cartels, helping all these people get along. When I talked to my dad, for those of you that can't see my brown skin, second generation Hispanic, when I talked to my dad, who retired down to Guadalajara, he said, man, there's so many Chinese down here now, especially in the city, but they're all opening businesses, which is pretty weird, right?
Right. That's really weird.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my mind is, you know, money laundering, fronts, you know, stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Then we have the cartels, and their coyotes bringing them across the border. As I've said before, we actually have no hard number except for one, and it was Fox News. They did it last year. And they said that in May of 2024, 30,000 came across San Diego.
Damn.
So we saw the backpacks of the guys wearing the same jackets, the same backpacks, the same clothing.
Right.
Where are these guys? Where are they, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you can see a lot of this with Michael Yan, Laura Logan, Mike Adams, a lot of stuff, you know. And now we have reports that, you know, they're owning, now they own the majority of the wheat farms in the United States. They took over.
Big dough right there.
Yeah. So there was a story I found on Google. It was based out of Oklahoma. It was kind of one of the bigger wheat farms in America. That's now run by the cartels. People don't know, and if you don't know, they're in the avocado business. They've been in the avocado business for a while, and now they're taking over the tequila business. So the cartels have their hands in everything, you know. So we have, when Trump tells Gloria Steinbaum, hey, man, you need to turn over these people, he's not messing around. And if you're watching kind of these flight radar, monkey works, all these guys are doing this stuff, you'll see a lot of, matter of fact, a couple of days ago, we saw these drones over Jalisco going around and over Nogales. So there's stuff coming, right? I think that Cuba's going to go first before Mexico, and that's because we moved those ships. We've moved from the Caribbean up on top of Cuba. And if you listen to Mark I think you have a picture there, or a graph there that I sent you of the Cuba thing. And if you listen to Marco Rubio, as soon as they were done with Venezuela, he was basically saying, Cuba, you're next.
Oh.
And Venezuela was a twofer, right? So not only did we take oil away from China, right?
Right.
To start messing with their economy, but now Cuba's not getting any oil now because it all came from Venezuela, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now it looks like it's a multi-pronged thing. We're going into Cuba. We're going to do regime change. We're going to collapse their economy at the same time, right? Because now they're not getting any oil. So are we forcing the people to turn on the communist rulers there or what? So same thing, China went in there. So not only do we want regime change, but China's also in there. So they also loaned billions of dollars to the government there, right? They also own ports. Mariel, Port of San Diego are two of them. And what people don't know is they also have Intel infrastructure in there. They have what's called Signet infrastructure in there. So signals intelligence in there. The two big ones are in Havana and Santiago. And same thing. They own the ports, and it's the same company, ZPMC, which was also in the report on the select committee of the CCP when they did their report called Handling Our Cargo, when they talked about owning 80% of the cranes here in America. That same company was in that report, so it's the same company, right? So when you take a glimpse, you got Venezuela, you got Cuba, you got Mexico. People forget that 5 years ago, China started rebuilding the deepwater ports in Kingston, Jamaica. So again, we're countering China. We're doing this public face of drugs and all this stuff, but it mostly has to do with China. And we go to people are like, okay, so now we got Greenland. Same thing. It's China again. You talk about Greenland, and a lot of people are saying, hey, Trump's rhetoric, he needs to tone it down. Like, what's going on? We're going to break up NATO. We're going to do this. Everybody's going this and that.
Right.
And anybody that understands Trump and knows Trump and is looking at what he does, he always negotiates here, right?
Yeah.
But he really wants it down here. And he always winds up getting what he wants, right? So people that were afraid that we were going to invade Greenland, we don't need to invade Greenland. We're already there, right?
Yeah.
So we made an agreement with Greenland in 1951 that we can go in there, have military bases there, which we already have, right? Have military bases there. And those military bases are kind of like sovereign patches of the U.S., right? So what he wanted was he wants to counter China. He wants to counter Russia, because what happens is, just like the Silk Road Initiative, China has what's called the Polar Silk Road. You can find that on Google, easily look that up. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to take over, like they did with Bagram in Afghanistan. That China now has Bagram. What they're trying to do now is take over a former naval base, and it's called, I'm not even going to pronounce it, but it's Gronnedal. However you pronounce that, that's the former naval base. That's what China's trying to take over right now. Right.
We're with you, John. Tell it.
Yeah, so we want to go in there. We want to counter China, but yet we want to help us too, because they have the rare earth minerals, like we were talking about before camera. They have, not only do they have the rare earth minerals that are helpful to our modern tech, our F-35s, our satellites, everything we're doing now. They also have a high deposit of zinc. They have a high deposit of iron, right? So you have the EU and NATO freaking out. You have Macron and all these guys who constantly stab us in the back. Starmer, Macron, all these guys. The only people on our sides are Meloni of Italy, Orban of Hungary. You have Fico of Slovakia. You have, Geert Wilders over in the Netherlands. You have Marine Le Pen. You have all these guys that are with us. The pro-Trump, anti-Ukraine, anti-EU. We don't want none of this crap, We don't want these wars. They're saying, hey, don't freak out. Let's negotiate. Let's do this. And Trump is saying, hey, well, Well, if push comes to shove, we don't need NATO.
Yeah.
Without NATO, without us, NATO's nothing. And that's the truth, you know?
Yeah.
So what happens? What happens? He goes to Davos, and what happens? We get everything we want. We win Greenland, right? We get
Right.
everything we want. And
Mhm.
if you watched when he had his or his little conference there on the peace initiative for the Middle East,
Right.
you know, he had Root there, who's the head of NATO,
Mhm.
and he was saying like, "Hey, Donald Trump is right. You know, let's do this. Let's counter China. Let's come together. Let's make a deal."
Right.
So the details in the deal will be coming out, but basically, we have an agreement to be there infinity forever, right?
Wow.
We get rare earth minerals. We get to build the Golden Dome, which is just like the Iron Dome in Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at where Greenland's situated, it's important that we have that dome there because we can intercept missiles from CONUS, right, from the U.S., but we want to get it before they get here, right?
Right.
So
Right.
we want to launch, right. So we want to launch from Greenland. So if you look at, there's various maps out there. Anybody could Google it, and that's what we want to do is put the Golden Dome there to intercept anything coming from Russia or China or wherever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is Greenland. Now, all eyes are on the Middle East right now, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back. So all that you have all these different public faces, but it's all basically to counter China also, right? So now we go to Iran. So what do we got going on in Iran? So Iran. So we have, this is like a 2-4-3-4. We have Iran here. If you've been watching what's going on the last couple months, people are saying, hey, why are you making peace with the leader of Syria, who is the head of ISIS, right? Or part of ISIS, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So you notice Israel and the United States and Britain have been visiting this guy. We've sent the head of CIA, NSA, CENTCOM there, AFRICOM there. And so we're playing nice with this guy. Everybody's asking why. And it's just, you start to see the plan, right? Why was
Right.
King Abdullah of Jordan here? Why was the head of Mossad here just this week? Why was everything going on? Why did Trump say, hey, this is my red line, don't kill anybody, or else I'm going to go in there and take care of business, right?
Right.
So reportedly, planes were in the air. We had tankers in the air, and it was called off. There's different speculation why, but one of the reasons was we're waiting for the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group to get there. They just got there today. About 4 hours ago, they arrived in theater. They're there right now. That's on top of, and I think you have a picture of the Arleigh Burke class missile guided destroyers. That's on top of the 3 missile guided destroyers that were already there. Who knows what subs are already there, right?
Right.
And then the last 2 weeks, what have we been seeing? There's about 19 refueling tankers that are there. You have F-15 Strike Group. You have F-15 Strike Group that is they're based out of Jordan. That's there. You have 4 more tankers that are there with those F-15 Strike Group. I think there's 17 F-15 Eagles in Jordan. You have what's there in Oman. You have what's there in Qatar. You have there what's Fifth Fleet, UAE. You have stuff that's out of Israel, and then you have Israel. And now in the last couple of days, you have British, French, Dutch, and other countries sending a heck of a lot of fighter jets there. So what does that look like? What are we seeing? We're seeing the exact same buildup that we saw in Venezuela, right? So the question is now, is it a big head fake? Is it to see if Khomeini goes to Russia, like was his plan B? Or are we going to strike? Well, it's going to be an expensive head fake, right?
Yeah.
So are we going to strike? And what are we going to strike? So are we going to strike? You know, he's always talking about what Reagan did when he was president, how he struck the coast and this whole entire Navy, the IRGC Navy. Is he going to strike that? Is he going to strike stuff inland? Is he going to strike the, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, the Basiji, which is the secret police that are rounding these guys up, these protesters, and hanging them, killing them? Is he going to strike those? What exactly is going to do? Right? That's the question.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
What we do know is this mirrors exactly the buildup to Venezuela. And what do we hear about Venezuela? You have the initial buildup, which gave time for the CIA and other elements. I'm sure there were special forces inside Venezuela, right? Not just the ones that did the initial operation, but the into country.
Mhm.
And then you had the use of these weapons, right? These high-tech weapons, right? That we all heard
Yeah.
about. So are we going to use those again? So a couple key things is we know that Trump likes to move a lot on Fridays now. So is it so the strike group's in position now? Is he going to move this weekend?
Probably.
I say he's going to move this weekend or early next week or sometime next week. He'll move. And I think that it's going to be, I think you're going to see American, Jordanian, probably Saudi. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Saudi, probably UAE,
Right.
British, French, and the rest of people that are amassing there. I think you're going to see a total big strike on Iran. And I think that we'll see some tech that we haven't seen before. And I think it's going to be the end of the regime. We'll see what happens. I think that their economy's already catering. You have the president of Iran. I was watching this interesting video where it was the president of Iran, and you had this panel there, and there's three mullahs. And the president of Iran was saying, hey, before I was president, when I was in med school, I could barely afford a house, a car, and this and this. And now that I'm president of Iran, I still can't afford it. Now everything's doubling. So their economy crashed.
Still in the toilet.
Right. So you're taking down their economy. You're taking down their economy. You are screwing China out of oil, right? And we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
You're changing possibly the regime, right? You're striking their oil fields and probably going after their nuclear capability. Now, if you throw up that map again of Iran, what's striking is now that we're friends with Syria and we're in Iraq, now you have 3 points of entry into Iran. You have the Persian Gulf, you have Iraq, you have Syria, and you have from the Black Sea. So maybe 4 potential entry points, right? So I think that we do it. I think we go after, and I think that Trump's just done. He's done. We're going to do it. That's it. It's over, and we'll see what happens,
Yeah.
Whether or not the prince of Iran, which is the Shah's son, whether he gets back installed, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think we'll just see. I think we're negotiating with people. The problem is when you look at commentary from Middle East experts, when you look at the Shah of Iran, you look at his son, you look at just everything out there. What's going on with Khomeini is basically he is the last hardliner. The president and actually the second in command under Khomeini, they're saying, hey, let's deal with the West. Let's do. So they're more pro-Western than people think. So I think it's going to be, I think that our intelligence agencies and I think that others are making deals with them to say, hey, we'll let you govern. Just like with Venezuela, we didn't go and put in, what's her name? The chick, the one they gave the Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. We let the vice president take over because we made a deal. Hey, man, we'll let you run this country, but you're going to do what we said. And you're going to help us, do these things. So I think that's kind of the same thing because Trump doesn't like regime change, right? So I think he's making deals with the second in command, the president, all these people saying, hey, we'll let you run stuff. We won't do regime change. But hey, you're going to be pro-Western. You're going to do this stuff. You're going to let freedom reign. You're going to let, stop this, Islamic hardships that's going on,
Yeah.
Now, what does all that have to do with us, right? What does that have to do with us in the United States? And how can we be ready for what's going on?
Right.
So all this, right, has many different. You have the public face, and then you have what's really going on. A lot of it's to counter China, and a lot of people are coming out and saying that now, right? You just have Peter Schweiker come out with a book. He's on Glenn Beck Live. He's on all these shows, even saying what I'm saying. It's all to counter China. You have all these CIA analysts going on YouTube and all this stuff. All these generals, General Jack Key, all this stuff. It's all to counter China. So this is why we know this is here. So what does that have to do with us in the United States? Well, we know from previous podcasts that I've done what China is doing here in the United States. And since our last podcast in the last couple of months, what's happened here is Secret Service during the week of the UN found that SIM card farm in New York, which was 100,000 SIM cards with 300 SIM servers that was capable of taking down the whole tri-state network. We know that 200,000 SIM card farm was found in New Jersey. They were going to take down the whole cell network. Boom, comms gone. Nobody has cell phones anymore, right? We know that in the last couple months, we found out that China was sending sex honeypots into Jacksonville, Florida, marrying or getting together with our sailors and Navy guys in Jacksonville, Florida to get information and buy them out. We know now, we know now, on top of what my reporting on Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, we know now it's come out that the golf course up north and up south are owned by a Chinese gentleman. Not just any Chinese guy, one of the heads of their intelligence, right?
Oh, damn.
Right. And we know that these students in Michigan that were bringing in biological pathogens into the U of Michigan in 2024. We know that faculty were now caught smuggling biological materials into Michigan to the University of Michigan, same thing. And we know now in Minneapolis what's really going on with these riots. They're all funded. We all know this. We know now that the funding's coming from a gentleman, and I'm going to pronounce his name, Neville Singham. He lives in China. He has close ties to the CCP, and he is verified from the DOJ. This is not just me saying this. Verified from the DOJ, he is funding these riots in Minneapolis. So this is what China is doing. What better way to stir up and foment this stuff? It's just like 5 years ago, if you guys watched Trevor Loudon and you watched he's got a great video on the Epic Times where he goes into BLM and all these groups, verified and proved that China was funding, literally paying for the BLM to do these riots, because you had the 3 ringleaders of BLM, right? The most notable one was Patricia Kalors, who went on YouTube and verified and says, we are Maoist Marxist groups. So China funds a lot of dissent, just like if you look at Taiwan, what's going on in Taiwan, if you look at the political aspect, China is funding pro-China people to be in Taiwan's political realm. So they're funding political dissent, riots, upheaval in our nation. So not only did they fund BLM doing the BLM riots, but now they're funding what's going on in Minneapolis through Neville Singham.
And people, try to blame it on Soros, and I'm just like, okay, there's got to be more to it,
right?
And here's the more.
Yeah, and I'm sure Open Society's Foundation, and I'm sure that they're doing a little bit of it too, but the majority of it is CCP tied, China affiliated. It's look at Venezuela, when you look at Greenland, when you look at Cuba, when you look at Mexico, when you look at what's going on in Minneapolis, all China's fingerprints are on it, right? So now we go. So after Venezuela and after these last couple things, what do we have? Verizon went down, right? Wow, it reminds me of a couple years ago when T-Mobile went down, the Waste Management went down. So we know there were hacks. Back then it was Volt Typhoon and Salt Typhoon. They're 2 big hacker groups. So was it them? We'll find out. The next day you had the Amazon and Twitter hack, right? Was it Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon, And so what just came out a couple days ago too was we just blocked China from acquiring flight simulators out of South Africa.
Oh, wow.
These flight simulators, this is open source intel, anybody can Google this. These flight simulators, right, were designed and they were training PLA pilots how to attack our AWACS planes and P-8s.
Whoa.
So we just learned that, and then just yesterday or the day before, we found out that PLA pilots are getting trained in Arizona.
Damn.
Right? So I mean, and that's nothing new. I mean, we train a lot of pilots. You know, in Idaho, right here in Idaho, we have a bunch of Qataris getting trained. We got Saudi pilots getting trained in Texas. You know, we train a lot of different people. But training our enemy, Chinese pilots, who are now getting from South Africa flight simulators to attack our planes, right? And everything that they're doing, you guys have all seen the map, my map that I've been tracking for 9 years. Everything they're doing, it's not good. It's not good. So China is the most important threat to our nation. It is the most important threat to this nation, right? Well, some people would say, well, what about these 1,000 Islamic extremists that were running by Hamza bin Laden that was on the Sean Ryan video? The Sean Ryan and Sarah Adams talk about on the video. Okay. But what did he say in the last 15 minutes of that video? Go back. What did he say in the last 15 minutes? He said, where are they getting the materials?
Right.
And what did she say? Through Chinese and Russian pipelines. And he said, why? And she said, because they use them as, the Chinese will use them as proxies, just like we're using the Ukrainians and the Ukraine thing against Russia. So everywhere you look, it's China. It's undeniable, right?
Right.
So, you know, we have all this going on top of the Somali stuff, and I'll get to that right now. What are some actions that we can do? What are some things that we can do? You know, what I tell people. I was just on a conference call on Monday with a big Patriot group on a Telegram channel. A good friend of mine, Old Ghost, has got a thing going on now. And I was talking to his group of people. And what are some things that we can do? Well, number one, we know they own the grid. And we've talked about this before. I'm not going to go into it again.
Right.
But we know they own the grid. My map's out there. You can go to my Twitter. It's on the map. It's there. They can take the grid down. No ifs, ands, or buts. They can take the grid down. So they can take the grid down. We see from the hacks they can take they can take our comms down, and we saw from the SIM card farms, which I'm sure there are a lot more of those. I'm sure they're here in Washington. I'm sure they're in San Diego, where the bulk of the activity is in California. I'm sure they're in Florida. I'm sure they're in Texas and Virginia. So what can we do for comms? How can we avoid this? The first thing I like to do is tell people is get on comms.
Yeah.
Get your.
Tell me, I have mine too.
Yeah. Get on comms. Get on comms. And what I mean by comms is, you know, the easiest thing to do is I tell all my guys in my state of Washington, and I tell the other groups, whether they're health freedom groups, militias, 3%er groups, whatever kind of group you're from, prepper group, whatever, get on comms.
Yeah.
$35, go get your GMRS license, get on the repeaters, have a net within your group. If you're not part of a group, maybe your family, you, your wife, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, whatever. Get on your GMRS. Get on GMRS. It's the easiest thing you can do. I personally, Tim, you're on it. I do a national net every Friday night. It's a national net. We have so many different groups throughout the country that are on that net. And so you could do GMRS, and then you could do HF voice, which is ham radio. Get your ham license. It's very easy. You take a test, you could do your ham license, and then you could do things like DMR, which is digital. You could do JS8 call, which is also a form of digital. And I'm just going to paraphrase, and all the comms guys are going to probably kill me when I say this. JS8, you plug your radio into your computer, and you get info through there. You get a quick sit rep. Hey, I'm in a position now where I can call, Steve Foster, Missouri. I call Magnum of Florida. I call Craftsman, New Hampshire. I call Matt Pearson in Virginia. I call Story in Oklahoma. I could call the guys in Texas. I call Spitfire and you guys down in California. I could call whoever I want in any state I want and get a quick, hey, what's going on in your state? Not only
Right.
does this work in a scenario like this, but a natural disaster. Look at the weather that's coming.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we proved this in North Carolina when North Carolina happened. All
Yep.
the Patriot groups came together. Everybody came together. We set up
Yeah.
a calm thing, and we were in touch with everybody. We sent supplies that way. We got info that way. You know,
Mhm.
it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so get on and learn comms. Learn your ham radio. Learn your GMRS. All that stuff. If you want to do just a family thing, rapid radios, whatever's out there, Meshtastic, Mesh Core,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. Do it for your
Yeah.
family. You know,
hmm
I say it like this, Tim. If you're at work and everything goes down, and you need to get a hold of the wife or whoever, hey, who's picking up the kids, or you or me going there? What's going on? Have a plan, or have a no comms plan. You know, have
Right.
push comes to shove. We all know we meet here. Nobody leaves here until we're all here.
Yeah.
Then we
Location
go do
meetup.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Another thing you could do is, you know, and again, this is not me saying this. This is FBI, NSA, military intelligence, DOJ. If the grid goes down or if they do something like this,
Yeah.
you know, have food on it. There ain't going to be no grocery stores. You can't go and run your debit card. They
Right.
can't
Yeah.
take cash. You're not going
Yep.
to be able to get gas. Gas
Yep.
gas stations are all electronic now. How
Yeah.
many of you know the old style gas station pump? You know,
Oh gosh, the old mechanical pumps. Yeah, I remember those.
there's not going to be no gas stations. There's not going to be no pharmacies. There's not going to be grocery stores, no banks, no ATMs, no nothing. So have food on hand, have some cash on hand, have a generator on hand with gas, have a solar generator, you know, and network with other people, network
Yeah.
with other groups, network with farmers. Maybe you're in a rural area. Hey, make friends with your farmers. So if you run out of food, maybe you could go buy some meat off them or something like that. You know? And most importantly, if you have a weapon, learn how to use it. Learn how to use it properly.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Learn
You
how to
definitely
use
need
your
to be
gun.
safe with your equipment. Yes.
Yeah.
Learn how to use a gun. You know, I always crack up when I hear these guys. There's been some guys that I've run across over the years where I was military. I don't need to practice. I know how to use a gun. I was like, bud, just because you're in the military doesn't know you know how to shoot. You know,
Right. You still need to practice.
any dude or any woman, any Joe Schmo can sit stationary and
Right.
shoot at a paper target. If that's what makes you feel good and you think you can hit a target by sitting stationary, hitting paper, okay, God be with you, because that's not really how life works, bud. You know,
Right.
go jogging. What I have my guys do is they'll go jogging up a hill, come back down, you know, primary couple, then secondary couple, you know, grab a bag, go running, pull a chain with a tire, go up a hill. We do all kinds of drills like that. Get your heartbeat running, and then go shoot, and then see how accurate. Let me tell you, when we first started doing that several years ago,
Yeah.
my most accurate shooters
Right.
were not hitting nothing, because they're like, wow, man, it's really different when your heart's beating, you know, fast. Yeah.
When you're out of
So,
breath.
yeah, learn how to use a weapon properly, you know, learn how to defend your family, you know.
Yes.
And I would just say, to end this topic here, kind of what I say to everybody. And I want everybody to think about this. You know, take this, what's going on, very seriously.
Yeah.
What China's doing, what China is doing to our country, it's no different than what we do when we went to Afghanistan or Iraq. It's logistics, right? It's logistics. It's you know, it's logistics. They're importing people into the country. They have control of our grid. They have control of ports. They have control of this. They're fomenting political violence. They're fomenting what's going on in Minneapolis. So get ready. And I advise you to take it seriously. And I would end it with this, on this note. Are you willing to bet the safety and security of your wife and your kids? Are you willing to bet the security on them? Are you willing to risk their lives on this? When all you have to do is pay $30 and get on the radio. When all you have to do is be ready, be prepared. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, you normie, when something happens and you can't go to the grocery store because there's a grid down? What are you going to do now?
Yep.
Where are you going to get your food? You know,
Right.
are you willing to bet the safety and security? And to all you patriots out there, and to you leaders out there, are you willing to bet the safety and security of your group?
Right.
Are you willing to bet the safety and security of your state, your group, your zone, whatever it is? Are you willing to bet the safety and security? Because let me tell you something. People are watching, you know. People are watching, you know.
Always.
So anyways, yeah. So that's kind of the urgent thing right now. I with Iran in the Middle East, I think it's going to come. You know, Trump he's been moving a lot on Friday, so we'll see what happens on Friday. We'll see what happens this weekend, early this week, and then on top of that, you know, we're getting a bunch of wins right now. We got a bunch of court wins right now. We're arresting people in Minneapolis, so that's good. With the Somali fraud things, I think you have a clip you want to roll.
Well, yeah. There's something I saw yesterday, actually. This happening in California.
After what's been exposed with the daycares in Minnesota. I'm a licensed private investigator in California. I started looking into state records and I found ghost daycares. These are places where the state inspectors showed up. There would be 28 kids enrolled and there were no kids there in the middle of the day and in the middle of the week.
All right. So a ghost daycare. Is that something Gavin Newsom could say, all right, you know, we'll try to shut that down? Does he cooperate when you start raising this?
No. In fact, today it got word from the governor's office. There's been a directive to actually shut down public access. So right now you can't even search the own state website to look into these ghost daycares, but I have found a workaround.
Okay, well, we don't want to tell the governor that you found a workaround. So, but it does sound like he's trying to cover his tracks. Like this is a cover up.
We're talking about billions of dollars in California. Today in New York, Kathy Hochul, she said she wants to increase child care subsidies to $4.5 billion. We're talking about the same amount in California, if not even more.
Yeah. So Minnesota, California, where else is this happening?
Probably everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's happening everywhere. I think that you know, from initial reports and from what I'm seeing and hearing, is that it's a whole network. They were saying that the stuff in Minnesota was tied to the stuff in Ohio. I know that I saw something today about Maine. So, you know, it's a whole network. And I think that what we're going to see is, I think what we're going to see is, I think you're going to see a lot of arrests, which are already happening. I know that they filed charge against Don Lemon today, but the judge said refused to honor the arrest warrant or something like that. And then now it's turning out that the judge, his wife, works for Keith Ellison's thing. And so what I'm hearing is Tim Walz, they have the goods on Tim Walz. He's basically going to go to jail, right? And Keith Ellison, I'm hearing that they have him on audio saying he'll cover up the fraud. So we're looking at charges for him. Now, Frey, the mayor, I think that he'll probably just get for obstruction or something like that. I don't know. They're not saying too much about him. It's mostly about Walz and Ellison. But, you know, they're all over the place, you know, and if it's horrible when you think about the blue states, my state, Washington, California, Oregon, New York, the fraud that goes on there. And you wonder why these states are so in debt, why they need money. You know, at Davos, it was pretty funny. If you watched all the highlights, I mean, you had Bessent, you had Trump, you had all these guys ragging on Gavin Newsom, you know, and they're gonna end federal funding. You know, they're gonna start ending federal funding, which they already had for my state for SNAP, for California for SNAP. They're ending all this stuff. They're not putting up with the fraud. Right. But the most important thing I would say to the viewers is you have to get involved in the political process too. And here's the thing. Right. The groups in Washington, here in Washington, Idaho, and Oregon, we've always known to be involved in the political process, right? We've always said, hey, this is how you're going to ensure that our electeds don't put up with this crap, right? So
Right.
I would encourage people to get involved in the political process. And what I mean by that is go get into your local county GOP. When you do that, you ensure you have a constitutional, liberty-loving, freedom-loving sheriff, commissioners, school board members. If you have a mayor, if you have a city council. In my county, Stevens County, which is the most red county in Washington State, we have commissioners and we have a sheriff. We don't have a city council. We don't have any of that stuff. You know, but I'm right next to Spokane.
And also judges. We talked about judges last week in last week's show. You got to make sure your judges are non-politically affiliated. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be blind justice.
Yeah. It's I'll be the first to admit I hate politics.
I do too.
I hate politics, and I don't go to every PCO meeting. But guess what? I'm there when it matters, and I ensure that my school board members, my superintendent, that they're not pushing the LGBT, the trans crap. Here in Washington, they passed a law where they could set up these little clinics and give your kids Plan B. They could tell your kids, "Hey, you're really a boy, you're really a girl," and now your kid can get assaulted, and they don't have to tell the parents for 72 hours. That's what. We're just trying to follow California on every little thing, But here's the thing: when you can ensure that these people are there, then you have a foothold. You actually have a say.
Right.
So you could stand up to these people, and it works. And let me give you an example. The reason why I got onto China 9 years now is because I was helped out with gun legislation. There was a bill called 1639, and one of the legislators handed me a speech. It was called the secret speech of General Shi Haoting, and that's what got me onto the China thing. And he says, "This is our most serious threat." And what I did with that gun legislation was me and another leader, Matt Marshall, who's in our legislature now. He's the founder of Washington 3%. Me and Matt called every sheriff in the state. And we got every sheriff except for 3 to sign on to tell our governor, who was Jay Inslee then, go pound sand. We are not going to honor this law. Then we called every county and all the commissioners. Then we called all the counties and all the commissioners.
Awesome.
And we had them all write letters and stuff saying, "Hey, we are not going to follow this law." So we had the majority of the counties say, "Hey, we're not going to enforce this law. We're not going to do nothing." Right? Then my sheriff was one of a few that came out and said, "Hey, feds are not allowed in my county to come and enforce federal laws. I am the highest authority per the Constitution of my county. If you come in here, I will arrest you." So this is what happens when you're engaged in the political process. Now, when I got in as a PCO, I had a bunch of WA 3 guys, I had a bunch of Lightfoot guys, I had militia guys, I had all kinds of patriots coming in, right? I had we got rid of, we have a senator, her name is Senator Shelley Short. Her husband was our district chair. We voted him out because he's a rhino, and we got in a Christian, a Constitution-loving Christian, Larry Batterton, who just passed away last week. We got him in and voted him in as our county chair. So we had all patriots in there, and this is what you can do. You stand up to the system. What are they going to do?
True.
No, that's the best way to do it.
John, do you think that's why the Department of Education, you guys both, why Elon was so quick to try to shut down the Department of Education because of the money laundering and the fraud that's going on over there? Because look at it with all the daycares. Why do we have so many people stealing from the system right now?
Yeah, so I think that's 2 different things. I think that, for my state, or for us, Oregon and California, I think that number one, Democrats just don't know how to handle money, right?
Oh, true.
They want to spend money on all these. California is no different than Washington, right? They spend all the money on these homeless programs, these drug proms, these high-speed rails, all this stuff, and if they're over budget, they over cost, and the money gets stolen, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's fraud rampant. So you have fraud rampant, you have voter fraud rampant. There's 17 lawsuits in my state right now by the DOJ. I think there's even more in California. They don't want to
Wow.
turn over their voter rolls because here's the thing. I'm sick and tired of people saying, I want to leave Washington. I want to leave California. No.
Right.
Why don't you guys stay and fight? Why don't you stay and fight?
That's why we're still here.
Have some balls and stay and fight. Because here's the thing. You don't understand. Once they get those voter rolls and see all the dead people, all the illegals, all everything's not supposed to vote, these Democrats are not going to be there. Do you understand the loose seats? That's the thing. California, it was very interesting because, I'm originally from Southern California, as you guys know, born and raised in 818, and it used to be all Republican from LA down south, San Diego, Orange County, everything was red. And then in 2020, it magically, all those red areas magically turned blue. Irvine, Fontana, San Gabriel, Santa Ana, all those areas, all those areas, Costa Mesa, all those areas that are dark red turn blue.
Yeah.
How does that happen in a 4-year period? You didn't import that many. You didn't import that many people. If you look at the census stuff that was put out there, so it's voter fraud. So once there's a reason why they're not turning over the voter rolls because they know it's fraud. Once it gets turned over, you lose all those Democrat leaders and they become red again. And then you have you fight too. Same thing here in King County. Same thing here in Washington. All these blue counties. People need to fight.
Well, curious question: where did all these voting machines come from?
It's a good question.
Just kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question, but the Venezuela thing.
Yeah.
If you guys remember, and anybody can Google this, if you remember, it was Jack Keane and McErney, General McErney, and all these guys. They were out there saying, "Hey, the voting fraud, the Smartmatic, and all these machines came from Venezuela." And I remember Brett Baer, and people could Google this. I think it was Brett Baer who told General McErney, "Hey, how do you know?" He goes, "Because I helped overthrow other countries with this system. It was called Hammer and Scorecard. We used it. The military used it. The American government used it to overthrow other governments. We've done it. This was from us." So that's
shady.
Right. So if you look into that, so there's a lot of stuff coming out now about also the voting machines that was taken. Listen, I have no doubt in my mind that Maduro is spilling the beans on what happened and what happened in 2020. I have no doubt he's given up a lot of people and a lot of stuff going on. So it's all going to come out.
Both him and his wife looked really calm when they were being walked down the hallway. So
exactly.
It does look like some deals are being made just by their appearance.
Yeah.
They weren't struggling. They weren't fighting. They were just, calm and almost smiling.
Right. And there were some reports out there, and I don't know if they're true. Let me say that. Yeah. There were some reports out there. I don't know if they're true. That Maduro wanted to get taken. He wanted to get, because what had happened was he was surrounded with 32 Cuban security guards. They're Cuban special forces or whatever. The 32 guys that got dropped by our military, and that they were telling him, "Hey, you're going to have to die for the cause." And he didn't want to die. They were telling him, "You're going to have to die for the cause," just like Che did, just like Fidel did, just like all these known the socialist communist guys. You're going to have to die for the cause. Oh, hey, we'll paint murals of you in Bolivia and Cuba like we have of Che and all these guys, So that was a report that came out from several sources. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, I've heard rumor about that, but I mean, you got to be alive to appreciate the murals and such.
Yeah, and those comments were made after what you just said. How he looked very calm, taking pictures, smiling, all this stuff, like he wanted to get out of there, Right. And so, but they just wouldn't let him. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. If it's not true, if it's true, it's true. But even if it's not true, I'm sure he's making deals right now to save his butt and say, "Hey, I'll give you this and this and this if you whatever."
Yeah.
So, it'll happen.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we lost Firecracker. Where did she go? Well, if she comes back, we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here, anyways.
Probably those storms, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of storms, anywhere from Texas all the way over to Tennessee up to Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas.
Another reason.
Stay warm.
Another reason to do comms. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's four basic types. So your CB, the citizen band, the FRS, your family radios, like I have in my hand here. And then you talked about GMRS. So you have to have a license for a GMRS, and that license is not very hard to get, to my understanding.
No. Yeah.
And then there's the ham radio, which you can see in my hand here. And that's a little bit more difficult, but honestly, it's not that hard, which I got to get off my rear end and actually, take the test. I hadn't done that yet. Well, for my ham or GMRS.
Right. And once you get your technicians and extra, you could do things like DMR and JSA call. There's all kinds of things you could do. FL Digi, there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do. And like I used to say, or like I say now, is learn all the tools in the tool bag. Do them all, because you don't know what's going to work, right? So let me give you a scenario, or let me give you some info. Right now, and again, this is widely available. You can Google this. Right now, China is sending their tech into Ukraine and having Russia use it to see what works and what not works. We know that Russia's using non-nuclear EMPs on Ukraine, and Ukraine's doing it to Russia. They're doing it to each other. So that's why I say learn all the tools on the tool bag. Because some guys say, there's some guys out there that say, hey, JSA calls the best way to go. It's the only thing that'll work. Well, hey, when they use a non-nuclear EMP and you plug your radio into your computer and your computer gets fried, what are you going to do now? You didn't bother to learn GMS. You didn't bother to learn Meshtastic or Mesh Core or anything else, because you're a one-show pony, So I say learn JSA, learn GMRS, learn all the tools on the tool bag. Learn it all. It's redundancy, right? It's like when I teach my son 5 ways to start a fire. You got your ferro rod, you got your cotton balls of Vaseline, you got your lighter, you got your matches, you got your wet fire, you got 5 different ways to start a fire. We'll learn how to talk 5 different ways. Go get a sat phone. I have a sat phone. Satellite phones are inexpensive. They're about $500 on Amazon. Me and my wife got one. I'm not on a plan. Well, what I do is I load up minutes on there. Every month I load up $100 to $200 on minutes on the phone. And that way, you have that.
Nice. So there's a question in the chat. So where can people follow you?
So I'm on Telegram. You can go to my Twitter page. I'm on Twitter under my name, John Valle. I'm on Instagram. Any of those. Any of those. All
right. Yeah, so just to reiterate real quick, the CB radio is probably your shorter distance, and there's the FRS, which you get a little bit further distance. The GMRS, how many miles, depending on how many watts, I guess, is your range. And this line of sight, so keeping count of buildings and power cables and such that can cause interference. And then ham radio type of antenna, and again, how many watts? So you want to make sure you have a good antenna, a good amount of watts, and again, that'll get you further distance. And again, it's line of sight, so keep that in mind. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining in on Patriots 3, Life, Your Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness. Be sure to follow, help out the channel. That's at Tim Holliday TV. That's TimHolliday TV. And until next week.
Ciao. And I would say for everybody, if you want to share this video, get the word out about what's happening in our country, you go to my Twitter page, you can see the map of what's going on here, especially here in the PNW. For those of you that are in the PNW, Washington, Panhandle of Idaho, Oregon, Northern California, we all buy power from Bonneville. So basically we're all screwed. So just check it out. Go there. Spread the word.
All right. Now I'll put his Twitter link into the show description later. All right. Till next time. Ciao for now.
Have a good one, guys.